With the decisions made in the previous step, gather your ideas and put them into a diagram or tree map or circle map or maybe mind map to help you see the connections. I always recommend my students to use this peel framework because you can see your ideas linearly. Therefore, you can see and manage the flow or coherence of your ideas throughout the essay. But then it's still best to use the one that works best for you. When filling in your diagrams, write in short notes. You have limited time after all, and you have a harder time later on when you want to craft your sentences. But anyway, now I'll bring you through this template or framework from the beginning until the end. This is a generic framework or in general, and I'd like to talk about what happens in each paragraph generally. Later in this video, I'll explain the differences in how we use this framework for different types of essays, the argumentative, discursive, or problem solution. Here, I'd like to say that this is not the only way to organize your ideas in essays. Out there, you would see that the thesis statement, for example, is located in the middle or even at the end of the essay. Or another example, we could have topic sentence, or P here. It could be in the middle of or at the end of the body paragraph. The organization of the ideas would be done creatively, but MUET writing can be rigid. There's no room for creative writing, and in fact, you're doing the examiners a favor when you write in a common style, like having the thesis statement at the end of the introductory paragraph and topic sentence in the beginning of a body paragraph. It helps them to mark your essay faster. Right, back to our framework. We'll start with the introduction. It begins with a hook. A hook in our introduction functions to grab or hook our readers' attention and then trigger them to question or argue or wanting to know the answer or to find out more about what you're going to say. Some of the ways to achieve this could be either writing a catchy sentence or tease them with a common misconception or a burning rhetorical question. And please avoid giving dictionary definitions or sweeping statements and cliches. It's best to write this hook in one sentence and in clear and concise words. For background information, give our reader the background information or context so they can understand our points and explanations later on. Depending on the subject of our essay, background information can either be a historical, geographical, or social context, or definitions of key terms related to the subject of our essay. The information given here should be relevant or related to the points that we're going to talk about in the body paragraph. So don't give too much detail here yet. Save the elaborations and examples for your body paragraphs. You can consider this as a teaser for your readers. Thesis statement. This is the central piece of your introduction. Here you'll show exactly what you want to say about the issue and how you will tackle the issue. Your thesis should be in 1 or 2 sentences that contains your stand and the 3 main points. These main points are not just statements of ideas. These ideas must be supported by explanations and concrete evidence in the body paragraphs. In other words, these claims must be justifiable. And maybe it helps if you fill out the body paragraphs first before writing this introduction part. Topic sentence P. Topic sentence should contain a point that mirrors the point mentioned in thesis and relate to the main issue stated in the question. This sentence should be clear-cut, so use clear and specific words so your readers can keep that in mind when reading the whole paragraph and they can follow your line of thoughts. and then avoid giving elaborations in this same sentence, and please put them in the next sentence in E, elaboration. So for this one, when elaborating the P, identify keywords in the P and write sentences with logical details that support and justify and develop the P. These logical details could either be facts, reasons, explanations, or descriptions. Another way that can help you find ideas is by asking yourself the WH questions: why, how, what, where, and when. For another E, or example or evidence, the example or evidence given should be relevant and specific to both P and E above. And for L, the linking sentence, we're doing this because we want to reinforce our claims. Also, this linking sentence helps us to show our reader or examiner that we are linking or showing the relevance of our P point elaboration examples here to the main issue mentioned in the question. The examiners are looking for this too in your essay. And my suggestion is rephrasing the topic sentence at the top of this paragraph and then putting it here in the L is one of the simpler ways to do it. And you can repeat the same process, the PEEL, in point 2 and point 3 of the body paragraphs. In the concluding paragraph, the clincher is used to reinforce our viewpoint or opinion. So restate or rephrase the thesis statement that you have written in the introduction paragraph. And this thesis contains the summary of the points in the body paragraphs, points 1, 2, 3. Actually, you can lift the whole thesis statement in the introduction here as the clincher, and you could rephrase it to make it sound better. And this restatement of thesis should answer the question. To close the essay, we could either give a logical recommendations or ask a rhetorical question to raise awareness or make a call for action. And please don't spark another issue. We're trying to tie up the loose ends here. We want a closure. Both argumentative and discursive essays practically do the same thing, which is showing an idea in response to a particular issue. Both essays talk about the different aspects of that issue. The differences of these two essays would be in the strength of the writer's stance or how confident you are towards the issue. I'll talk about this in more detail while using these two frameworks for argumentative and discursive essays. While I explain on how to use this framework, I'll also be showing you the differences between the two types of essays, argumentative and discursive. The reason why I put these two together here is they are often mistaken for each other because, yes, their structure and organization of ideas are mostly similar. And what differentiates them will be in the subtle manipulation or play when addressing the views. And then later in the next writing stage, writing out the essay, the language, play, or manipulation sets the tone of your essay, and therefore deciding whether your essay is argumentative or discursive. And I must say that this method can be applied to speaking too. So we go back to this planning stage and look at these frameworks. In terms of purpose, argumentative tends to argue or persuade readers to be convinced with the writer's stand, while discursive presents a balanced and objective examination or discussion of an issue. And in the introductory paragraphs, technically we have same structure in both types. I'm using the term viewpoint and opinion in the thesis just to make them look different. In terms of stance, both types can agree, disagree, or be neutral towards the given statement, but usually Argumentative tends to openly agree or disagree, while discursive appears to be neutral towards the statement. In the body paragraphs, argumentative will persuade readers to accept your viewpoint by giving the 3 reasons, while discursive tries to explain your opinion by giving the 3 reasons. Argumentative tend to present a one-sided argument, while discursive presents an informative, balanced, and unbiased discussion. Both argumentative and discursive present both sides of view or perspective, proposing or opposing views, and give reasons and evidences to show why each view is valid or invalid according to your viewpoint or opinion. In both essays, each point or reason should be presented in its own paragraph, and here we give 3 reasons. In argumentative, I recommend for MUET writing the first 2 reasons, reason 1 and reason 2. You give reasons which directly support or justify your viewpoint, and then the last reason, reason 3, you talk about the other view, the view that you don't agree with, and then you rebut or refute it by showing that view is invalid. We call this style of argument as a rebuttal. Some call it counter-argument or refutation. You can also apply this to discursive if you're taking the agree or disagree standpoints. In discursive, if you want to remain neutral, I recommend that the 3 reasons are justifications, because when you're neutral, you're not taking sides and you agree to both proposing and opposing views. So 2 of the body paragraphs justify one side of the story, and the other 1 paragraph, the 3rd paragraph, justifies the other side of the story. In other words, 2 paragraphs to justify for the question statement, and 1 paragraph to justify against the question statement, or 2 against and 1 for, depending on which type of ideas you have at that time. And remember, you must present 2 sides, for and against. Now the conclusion. Both argumentative and discursive, the clincher will be a restatement of the thesis and in the introduction just now. That also means restating your viewpoint or opinion plus the 3 reasons mentioned in the body paragraphs. To close the essay, argumentative essays will have stronger tone where you make the conclusion or decision, while discursive will have a low-key or humble tone where you let your readers to make their own conclusions or decisions. So in argumentative, you could make a call for action, while in discursive, you could make recommendations or suggestions. Now let's try these 2 out. I like to start with the body paragraphs first, because later this will help me build the hook, context, thesis, and call to action or recommendation easier later. When we finished planning out the body paragraphs, at that point we already know what suitable terms to be used in the introduction, and we already have a clear sense of how our arguments will go. So building up your context and forming your thesis statement becomes way easier. I'm saying this because many, myself included, have experienced some kind of a writer's block when finding the words to use in the introduction. Now, let's say when in step 1 you have decided you wanted to disagree to the statement fashion defines a person's character. So in the first body paragraph, you think of 1 point to justify your disagreement, and I can think of this. So I'm saying that fashion doesn't define but allude, meaning to suggest or hint to something that we don't have. And now to explain that, I'm saying how fashion alludes. Because stereotype is what we judge by looking at what that person wear, but it doesn't mean it's true for everyone, right? Then to give an example for that, because some people use glasses as a trend or to achieve a certain look, not because their eyesight has problems. Then to summarize this paragraph, we can reuse the points in P, but rephrase it a little. And this is the example for reason 1. And done with point 1. Then for points 2 and 3, or reasons 2 and 3, we repeat the same processes with the other ideas that you have. And we have this. And for point 3, since it's a rebuttal type of argument, I'm using the word but here to show my rebuttal or refutation. You can also use other words that show contrast instead of this but. Now we have all the 3 points ready and know what terms to use. We can fill out the introduction and conclusion. In the introduction, for hook, let me try not that catchy, but I'm assuming that people will start to question when they read this statement, meaning that they are interested to know further. Then give them a context. Here I use clothing accessories to replace or define fashion, and then the word express to replace the word define, and then personality or ability to mean character. And then since all 3 of my points below relate to fashion being something that serves the 3 different purposes, I wrote tool to serve various purposes. But let's not write the point in detail yet in this context. We put the details in the thesis. Here, your viewpoint or opinion, if you're writing a discursive essay, you state, and you must follow it with the questions statement. Fashion does not define a person's character, because you must agree or disagree to something. For discursive essay, if we want to show that we're neutral, we can write, I wish to remain neutral, or I wish to stand on a neutral ground, or the likes of it. And then the 3 main points here we take from the P's in our body paragraphs, P1, P2, and P3. And we're done with introduction. In the conclusion, the clincher, you can take from your thesis. Here. And put it down here. Then to close, and we can have it like this. Now let's try planning for the discursive essay. Let's say when I have decided to be neutral towards the statement, fashion defines a person's character, I can still use the first 2 points in the argumentative framework, these 2, and put them here. Meaning now we have 2 justifications against the statement here. Now we need 1 justification for the statement. For this, I can think of this. So this paragraph supports the statement. In the introduction, you can take from the argumentative and change some parts in the thesis. We change reason 3 because that's the odd one out. You can get from the P in reason 3. Change it. Fix it here. Help break conformity. So now we have introduction. In conclusion, the clincher, you can take from your thesis as a restatement there. And to close, you can type it like this. Fashion is for various reasons, both self-expression or not. Now let's talk about the problem solution essay. In terms of purpose, problem solution essays discuss the given problem and then give solutions to the problem or problems. In the introductory paragraph, as the context, I recommend you to do 3 things. 1. You define the key terms mentioned in the question statement. You can also rephrase the terms or sentences so you can find or understand the problem better. But make sure the meanings are correct to the terms given in the question. And second, describe the problem briefly. Then third, you explain why this problem should be solved. For your thesis, when talking about problems, it will usually involve talking about the causes and effects of that problem. So here you identify 3 causes or effects and the solutions to each cause or effect. And your causes or effects can be a mix, like 2 causes and 1 effect, or 1 cause or 2 effects, depending on what you can come up with. Then the proposed solutions, solution 1, 2, and 3, should be clear, specific, and relevant to the problem. In the body paragraphs, each solution should be presented in its own paragraph, paragraph 1, 2, and 3. Each paragraph contains arguments and evidence to support or justify your proposed solution. In the conclusion, the clincher will be a restatement of the main problem and followed by the 3 solutions to each cause or effect that you have identified earlier. To close the essay, you explain why or how these solutions are important, and then you make a call for action, telling your readers to do something. Now let's try this out. I'll start with the body first. First paragraph, I can think of 1 effect. So the statement says the mass production of cheap garments is harming the environment. So for the effect, I can talk about water pollution, microplastics, and that harm marine life. And my solution is choosing natural fibers in our clothing. And then in the explanation, I explain a little bit about the problem. Here I explain a little bit on the effect. And in the second sentence here, I explain a little bit on the solution. And then give an example of cotton, saying cotton as an example of natural fiber. And then for linking sentence, you can rephrase the P. Then you can repeat the same processes for solutions 2 and solution 3. We have solution 2 and solution 3. Now for the intro, let me put this here. I copied this from a website to be an example here. I find it very catchy as it subtly introduces what mass production of cheap garments mean, and it contains a kind of mysterious element here in the last sentence until we found out what was hiding behind this trend. Then the context. Again, we define the terms in the statements using the words that we understand, and then say why we should solve this problem. Then the thesis. we get from the piece below. And of course, I have rephrased a little in the thesis. And that's our introduction. For the conclusion, the clincher, we can copy from the context and copy this and put in the clincher class, and then we get the thesis here. Get this one, put it down here, and there we have our clincher. And to close, we can copy the second part of the context, this part. Why should this problem be solved? And we put it here, and then make a call for action. We can say we should apply these 3 solutions into our daily practice immediately. And that is how we could do the problem solution essay. I'd like to credit these authors as I have referred a lot to their works when creating this video. And for trained teachers or examiners, do fill in the feedback form. I've dropped a link in the description below if you have found discrepancies or errors in this video. And I really appreciate your help in clarifying any concerns raised by our candidates in the comments section below. And for candidates, it's a best practice to check the date of this video to see if it's up to date, and always refer to the MPM website for any updates on MUET.